Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Welcome to the Open Door Podcast. I'm Chelsea.
I'm Bedford.
And we're super excited to continue the conversation that we've been having.
Absolutely. Hey, I got a question for you.
Okay.
What episode is it?
I don't know anymore. I gave up. I want to say 17.
Yeah, it is correct.
Oh my gosh. Episode 17.
Yes,
you guys.
It is.
I'm not great at remembering those things. I feel like we've been having some pretty good conversations in our comments.
Yep.
Just over all of the platforms about the topic that we've from last week. And so I'm excited to just kind of keep it going.
Keep it going. Okay, so
we do have
well, I wouldn't say random things because they're pretty prevalent things.
Okay.
It's one random thing that we've heard in the news, and I just want to take a minute and talk about it.
Yeah, but you need to say the thing.
The thing is real simple. TikTok might not exist by the time this episode comes out.
I know, which is crazy. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you kind of nailed it. Because here's the thing. TikTok is not our main platform. So in terms of worrying about losing it, we have nothing to lose, you know? And so I haven't really had to deep dive into anything with it because it's not my main platform. And we haven't really even been working on growing it because it's kind of been
might go away.
It might not be here. So I would just dump my energy into something else until I know better, you know? But
now, I will say this. Chelsea's been building her platform. It's quite a bit bigger than the podcast and definitely a lot bigger than my platform as well for quite some time. And for a while, we felt like we missed the bus on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Because we were the old people that couldn't work a DVD player. And we're like, absolutely not.
But also at that time, though, it wasn't
work.
You were working,
yeah.
Right? And so the amount of work that goes into social media is so much more than really anybody realizes. And when you were working and I had the kids and Instagram was really all I could manage. The idea of taking on a separate platform like YouTube or TikTok or anything else was just too much for me. And so when you were able to be here, it was kind of well, maybe we missed the boat.
Yeah. And it was rough because we definitely, obviously, we know a lot of creators, especially in Utah. And we definitely sat on the sidelines and watched a lot of people make a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Because they committed and, congrats to them. And it's no shade on them in any way, shape, or form. And if anything, I feel for them because that could be a substantial income source that is just gone.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking, man, this was a Bitcoin moment for us.
Yeah.
Maybe not as dramatic as Bitcoin because I spent $500 on a guitar instead of Bitcoin, and that would have changed everything.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of weird having that go away. Now, what do you think? Are we right to do away by TikTok, or where do you stand with that?
No, I don't think.
But why not?
Here's the thing: if I don't necessarily believe that the government should be able to just come in and rip something out from under you, right? In certain aspects. And I think that it actually was probably the most accurate way of describing how I feel when you were watching that video the other day when it was okay, well, we could maybe try to make our schools safer. And it was nope, we can't do that, but we can ban TikTok. And then it's okay.
How about affordable health insurance?
Nope, but we can ban TikTok. How about more affordable groceries? Nope, but we can ban TikTok. And I'm why are we worrying about something? You can talk about surveillance all you want, but also I'm being surveyed by my Alexa right now.
You're going to turn on the house assistant. She's listening.
I know, but I'm just saying she's always listening. That's the thing. She's always listening. I am not under any guise that we are not being surveyed
by multiple things right now, our iPhones are doing it.
Yes, by our own government.
Yeah.
And and Furbies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not. And so for me, I'm we've got way bigger issues that are our own issues that we could resolve.
But we spend a lot of effort and a lot of time to remove TikTok, which for kids, I could see that there's a danger for social media for kids, and I could see some of those things, but like more dangerous than like not
also
being able
be a
to
parent.
get. Well, yeah, but like what I'm trying to say, like it's not more dangerous than like not being able to get an inhaler at a reasonable price.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Or like,
yes.
you know.
Well, the other video that I saw about it this morning that I really resonated with, and like, whoa, that was weird. I like kind of felt emotional for a second. Was this girl that was talking about how she was like, influencers aren't like TikTok influencers that are upset that TikTok is going away. They're not out of touch.
No.
And she was like, you are out of touch for not understanding A, how much work it is, and then B, not understanding that social media is one of the only female dominated industries where truly we run the world. We do. Like as women, social media is mostly run by women. Like, and to, you know, she was talking about how like a lot of creators, if they don't have a platform somewhere else, which a lot of them don't, they are going to have to go back to industries that are male dominated, right?
Well, and like, you know, you're like, well, why don't you just build another platform? It doesn't work like that. It
freaking takes forever. That's why. Like, I know a creator that I met last year at an event, and her TikTok presence, she has like 4 million followers, and then her Instagram presence has like 106. And
106,000?
106,000. Yeah. And so I know that presence is still large. However, Instagram business is harder to bring in than TikTok business. Mm-hmm. Instagram followers are way harder to gain than TikTok followers. Like, those communities are very different now.
And they're ultra valuable. Like being able to say I have 5 million followers when you're talking to a brand.
That matters.
You get paid a considerable amount
and people
more.
just think that you're going back and forth between both apps and that people are like generally active on both apps, but that is not the case. No. Do you know how many times? So our platform is sitting a little over 100,000, right? Somewhere between 100 and 110,000 on Instagram. Do you know how many times I've told people there to come over and follow us on TikTok?
I have no idea, actually.
A bunch. And do you want to know how many followers I have on TikTok? 9,700.
Yeah.
Because my Instagram community is not interested in coming to TikTok. People are TikTok consumers or Instagram consumers. They can be both, but one is their preference.
Yeah.
Right? And so it breaks my heart to knowing how hard I've worked and knowing, and especially like, and you can take this, you know, down a crazy road, but knowing how many men I have told, whether they were, you know, family or friends or a neighbor, that this was my full-time job, and the way that they've like laughed at me over time, right? And then to think that as a woman, you're going to go right back into an industry that is not built for you, you know?
We're just like, yeah, there's nothing.
I mean, as a woman, there are a lot of industries that are not built to accommodate you. No. There's differences in pay. There's differences in, I mean, as a creator, if I have a baby, like I have the
flexibility to do whatever
to honor my body and be a mother, and like the workforce doesn't do that here. So there's just so much that goes into it. So I really am pulling for all the people on TikTok because they've worked really hard. They've worked really hard. So,
and you know, hopefully we could take that same vigor and maybe, you know, approach things like healthcare and equity and
you know,
safety,
keeping my
violence,
kids
like all the other things that like.
But hey, we're gonna be on TikTok, but your kid can throw a pencil at somebody that comes into their classroom.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just.
So
it is what it is, and we're sorry to see it go. If it does go, it may not.
Maybe it doesn't.
It's still up
Fingers
in the air
crossed.
To a degree, right now it's looking real bleak.
Yeah,
but
I mean, my opinion is that, so what I had heard is that even if the TikTok ban goes through, TikTok will not just be like removed from your phone. Like you won't wake up the next day and the app will not be accessible. You'll still be able to access it. You'll actually still be able to engage with people. However, the US like numbers will no longer be eligible for updates. So essentially what will happen is they will just phase you out.
Essentially, yeah, you're right. You won't be
able
to use it.
Ultimately what I think is going to happen is that once the new presidency comes in, that because the app will still, I mean, essentially exist here, right? That things will change later. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
or another app will come in and take over.
Which honestly is like my worst nightmare, but it's fine.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm like, let's go.
Let's I am an established person.
You
like
ever heard
I'm
of Lemonade?
Lemonade. Lemon, the number 8.
Yeah, I think it sounds stupid, but
realistically, was probably. Instagram, you know, it's like, it's one of those things.
Or TikTok. That sounded stupid for a long time.
I know. And now it is what it is. So I don't know. We're going to have to just kind of see what happens.
All right. So that was our random stuff we found in the news, because that's kind of like a heavy hitting thing
that's
happening
is.
like right now. Like by the time this pod comes out, TikTok could be gone. Bum, bum, bum.
We'll have more answers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you listened to last week's episode, then you know what we're going to be talking about this week. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, go give it a listen.
You're about to find out.
But this week and going forward, so this week and the following 3 weeks, we are talking about how to talk to your kids about race, diversity, inclusion, and equity on an age-based level. So this week we're talking from 0, and yes, I mean 0, to 4 years old, and how you talk to your kids about, you know, race and why people look different than them, and, you know, giving them the education and why it's important that we do that at that age. Next week will be 5 to 7. The next week is 8 to 13. Mm-hmm. Nope. I'm lying. It's 5 to 9, then 10 to 13, then 14 to 18. Yeah. So this week, we're going to talk 0 to 4. All right. And one of the biggest reasons that people give for not talking to their kids about race is that, like, kids are just like inherently good, right? Like, they're just good, and they don't especially at this age range, like 0 to 4. That is the most common thing, is that people are like, I don't need to talk to them about it. Like, they're born good. They're just good. They don't know better. They love everybody. And like, as far as that thought process is concerned, what do you think?
You know what? I don't think people are wrong when they say kids are inherently good. Right. I think they are. Kids are genuinely, like, just so innocent and so willing to be, like, friends with anybody and everybody, and so inquisitive. But also they're learning at a rapid pace. Yes. And so the reason why you do want to talk to them about it is because if you don't, they're going to learn something somewhere, and they're going to learn it quick and not understand it, and it'll stick.
Well, I mean, survival for a baby, like, babies are born curious, and it's for survival purposes. I mean, you consider how much children are learning at such a rapid pace. Like, you take your kids to a pediatrician's appointment, and it's like, well, how many words are they speaking? Can they walk? Can they crawl? And they learn all of those things through curiosity, right? It's like, oh, well, if I do this, then I move like this, or if I do this, then I can roll over, or they're listening, they're hearing mom and dad or their siblings say words, and then they're learning to just mimic those words. Yeah. They're also learning when mom and dad say those words. Like, you think about it, a 18-month-old child is hearing when their mom and dad say certain words, and then in that brain, they are figuring out what that word means. Yeah. You're not even telling them what that word means. And so we don't give our children enough credit for the amount of reasoning and rational thinking that they do, even as babies, just to figure out how to live life.
I think my favorite videos are the videos of kids, like, that are in the backseat of a car when, like, you know, mom or dad has to slam the brakes. They say some sort of explicitive, and then the kid picks it up right away. And, like, yeah. Oh, or like, yes, I've seen one where, like, dad came home from a golf trip and the kid's now just cussing every time he takes a swing. Yeah. And so, like, they're always picking things up, which means if you're not careful, they could pick negative things up, right?
And not even just from you. They could pick up a negative thing from somewhere else, right? And it, like, if you haven't taught them right and wrong, or if they don't have anything to go on with that. Like, so for example, Jax came home and was telling me that he hears the N-word at his middle school somewhere between 20 and 30 times a day.
Sounds about right.
Okay. And he was like, you know, they definitely have to be learning that at home. And I was like, no, not necessarily. But what they aren't learning at home is that the N-word isn't a good word. So even though their parents might not be saying, like, and okay, let me rewind. It's not that the N-word isn't a good word to... Okay. It's not that the N-word is a bad word. It's just that it's not the appropriate word for a white child to be walking around school saying, right? And their parents have never had that conversation with them. And so because of that, they're hearing it and then they're just like, oh, well, I don't necessarily
can't figure out why not.
I don't see why it would be a problem, right? So that starts really young. And one of the most common one of like the best examples for me, so children use a concept called transductive reasoning, right? So, and from like the very beginning. And so one example of transductive reasoning is like a train drove by and a car honked. So for a small child, in their mind, they could think to themselves like, well, every time a train goes by, a car will honk. Like the train going by is what triggered the car to honk. Right? Okay. And so they just make these small connections that make absolutely no sense and they're not actually accurate in any way. But in their brain, that's just, they're wired to think that way.
And I wouldn't say that it's not accurate. It does, some of them are accurate.
Sure.
Like when I cry, mom tends to feed me or figure out what's wrong with me.
Sure.
Right? So some things are 100% accurate. It doesn't mean that all of them are accurate.
Right.
And sometimes they get stuck on something that's completely inaccurate.
But again, that's a survival thing. Like when they are unable to communicate, they learn, like if I cry, right, then my mom will start trying at least to figure out what is going on.
Step one to figure out how to resolve my issue is to cry. Yeah.
Correct. But in situations like the train, it's like, no, the train driving by did not trigger the car honk, right? Now, that transitions into their relationships at school. Okay. So if a child goes to school, and this is all like, we can put resources and things like that, attached here.
Cite our sources.
Yes. But as children go to school, a lot of the groups that are maybe ostracized or, not given the opportunity to have the same friend groups are minority groups and, children with disabilities. Okay. And now it's not because your child is necessarily a jerk that is just going to school and is trying to be rude. And that's not necessarily the case. What happens is that children are going to school. They see a child that is Black or a child in a wheelchair. And they say, well,
that's different than
me, and I don't know why. So for like a child could go to school and they could say, I'm a boy and he's a boy. So we probably both like football.
And trucks.
Right. Maybe that child doesn't want anything to do with football, but they don't care because there is this one similarity on the outside, which makes them similar on the inside. They probably like the same things. They probably have now that's often why you get to the like, well, you're a girl, so
you can't play with us.
You don't want to play football.
No, you want to play kickball.
I don't want to play makeup, right? Yeah. Like that's just the way that kids are. And it's all because of this concept of transductive reasoning that we are alike in this way, which means that we are probably alike in these ways. Now, if you send your child to school and you've never talked to them about diversity, you've never talked to them about why people look differently than you, why they have different hair, why they might have a different skin color, children will come up with an answer to that themselves. And they will say I don't know why. And I'm uncomfortable with why I don't know why. So because of that, I'm going to play with these kids that are similar to me.
Yeah. And on the flip side too, you'll see that kids that have maybe a sibling that's autistic, right?
Correct.
Will be more likely and more willing to play with the other autistic kids in the school.
Because they understand.
They understand, they get it, they've seen it. They're like, okay, so this is exactly like my brother. And they'll use that same reasoning process to be like, I understand how this works.
We have even seen that with our own children, right? Yep. So, Riker has some very particular mental emotional needs. And our other children are actually really okay with other kids that have some of those needs that Riker has. Where a lot of other kids are like, that's weird or annoying, right? Yeah. They just kind of write him off. Our kids are very no, I understand.
I get it.
I see it and it's normal. It feels normal. It feels right. And so the more you introduce your children to diversity and all of those other things, starting young, the less likely they are to go to school and be like, I don't get it. I don't understand why this is a problem. And then kind of just shy away from it. Again, not because they're trying to be unkind.
Just because it's new and different. And
correct.
Sometimes, they're not trying to be unkind to the first time they have cabbage,
Right.
or, celery or whatever it is. They just is like, that's new and I don't want to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's it. That's all. It's nothing to do with whether the celery or cabbage tastes good, which we could have a debate on whether it does or not. But it has everything to do with it's new and different.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so because of that, you have minority groups and children with disabilities that are like, I don't have any friends. I don't have anybody to hang out with. And, that standard just kind of like and again, like you think these relationships are starting in kindergarten, right? Yeah. So then in first grade, these people already have established friendships. And then those friendships continue to second grade and third grade and fourth grade. And so a lot of these kids are growing up without those like friend circles because it started so young. So while there are a lot of people out there that are saying like, oh, well, they're just really young. They love everybody. They care about everybody. Like, yes and no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think the cool thing is it's never been easier to fix that than it has been like now. Correct. Because of representation and things and some of the things that we'll go into on how to address that and use transductive reasoning to your own advantage, right? If you want your kids to assimilate with other kids, it's never, ever been easier to get it done than it is right now.
Right. And I think, so we're going to talk about because we don't want to spend the whole episode like harping on the problems as much as we want to. We want to talk about like, what am I supposed to say to my kids then? Like, what conversations should I realistically be having with my children about race and all of those other things, right? And so one of the first things that I was going to talk about, and this definitely goes into like you're going to see some maybe trailing from like this episode to the next episode because some of those things are going to fall into each category, right? And it depends on where your children are, what they're capable of taking in, what they're capable of processing. Like I had, the birds and the bees conversation with Jax when he was 8 because he kept asking questions and he was old enough to process and kind of understand. Riker not till 10. Because I just knew that he wasn't ready for that information, right? Yeah. So you kind of have to gauge those things as a parent. But the nice thing at this age is that a lot of it is just representation based. Yeah. Because there's not a lot of conversation or communication.
That needs to be had, yeah.
Yes, that you're going to be having with a 1, 2, 3, 4-year-old.
And that's why I say it's never been easier. Like just throw on Doc McStuffins and you've already taken a massive leap in the correct decision. Yeah, correct direction. Can't say that. Correct direction.
So one of the things that I actually wanted to talk about, and this comment will likely come up again as time goes on, but there was, where'd it go? Okay, well, I'll just bring it up. So there was a person that commented on our episode from last week on TikTok, right? And they had essentially said, there's plenty of representation out there. Like you guys are,
because we were talking about Black Panther and
correct.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is a lot of representation is becoming larger, right? But we're not just looking for black side characters.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're having your kids watch a show, it's really important to make sure that the main characters are sometimes people that don't look like your kids.
And it doesn't have to be every time.
No, not every time.
Just sometimes.
Just sometimes, because kids are going to resonate with the main character often, right? So like when they're watching Doc McStuffins, they're not going to want to be the little brother's best friend.
Or make it simple, everybody wants to be Elsa and Anna. No one wants to be Hans. He gets crapped on.
Well, he's a bad guy.
Hans is a bad guy. Who's the other guy that I don't even remember? Which is Kristoff.
Right.
Okay? Everyone wants to be Elsa, Anna, Olaf. Kristoff never gets no shine.
Right. It's unfortunate for him.
Yeah, there's a little brother somewhere with 2 older sisters that got just pooped on.
But I think that it's just one of those things where it's really, so, you can say like, oh, well, it's, important that my kids are watching these shows and that there are people in the show that don't necessarily look like them, and that's fine. And it's the same with books, right? Like we buy books that have diverse pictures, which is a good thing. And so, but you want to make sure that when you're doing it, you're actually taking that like next step to say, I want my children to resonate with someone that doesn't look like them, not just see a picture of someone that doesn't look like them, but actually resonate with someone so that maybe they do have some similar characteristics, right? Like, again, Doc McStuffins as a main character is great. Like, oh my gosh, she's caring like I am, or she loves her stuffed animals just like I do. Like, I also love my toys, and we don't have to look the same in order for us to be similar.
Yeah. And that's something that, like, I love Doc McStuffins. It helps a lot because my sister is a doctor.
Yes.
Who is she's a pediatric orthopedic doctor, specialist in both. And so a lot of times she'll be like, the moms will come in and the kids will be like, oh my gosh, it's Doc McStuffins all grown up.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes life so much easier for her.
Well, and his sister was like, I had to figure out who Doc McStuffins was.
She had to Google it. She was like, I don't know who Doc McStuffins is.
This was before she had kids.
Before she had kids. Now she knows real good who Doc McStuffins is. But she's like, it made all the kids that said that were way easier.
And I mean, because being at the doctor's office, especially in Stacy, Bedford's sister's name is Stacy,
yeah.
But like, especially in her situation, that can be a little bit scary
you might
for
have
a child.
Broken arm.
Yeah, you might have
leg.
a broken bone. You're in pain. And so to be able to make that connection for them was important.
It's all good. Doc McStuffins is here. She's going to fix me up right quick. Graduated from the stuffed animals and went to working on me.
Yes, exactly. And so there was this guy in the comment section essentially saying like, it's fine. Your kids have just as much representation as I did or as my kids. And, it's not, that's inaccurate. Okay. Just for the record, it's inaccurate. We had, I put the statistics out there where we started talking about the fact that like the representation is there, but for like my girls, if they want to be a Disney princess, which first of all, I just want to be so clear. We tell our kids, you can be whatever you want. You want to be Elsa, you can be Elsa.
We got Elsa, we got Snow White, we got all the dresses. Shout out to the dress company we love.
Taylor Joelle.
We done shots with them and everything.
Yeah. And so, it's like we tell our kids that...
You want to be Mirabelle? You be Mirabelle.
Yeah, you can be whatever you want. That's totally fine. But they recognize that they don't feel represented. Yeah. And they will make comments about it. They'll say, well, I don't want to be Elsa because I don't look like Elsa. Right? Oh. Now, that being said, they got Tiana in 2008. So in 2008, Princess and the Frog was released, and there was a black princess, someone that looked like them. Okay. But the first Disney princess that was released was Snow White in 1937.
Yeah.
And following Snow White, you had a few other ones, right? Like Pocahontas, etc. And it's great, but it took from 1937 to 2008 for there to be a black Disney princess. And so, and even until now, she's still the only one.
Nala.
Yes, and Nala. Oh, yes, we talked about that last time.
97% of the movie.
She is. So. She is a frog for almost the entire film. And so there is still an imbalance there. And so to recognize that and not just make the assumption like, oh, well, diversity is great and it's everywhere, because it's that thought process that he had of like, well, it's everywhere. It's the same. It's equal. That makes it so that you think your kids could just turn on the TV and they will naturally be exposed to diversity. That is not the case. Like, it's just not.
It's becoming easier, but it's definitely not. And 10 years ago, absolutely not the case. Couldn't be further from the case. I can appreciate the strides. Oh
my gosh. We're so grateful.
Hey, I'm going to celebrate the wins over the last 10 years, but like us growing up, we didn't have that.
No. And I think, so that's where you kind of have to like be a little bit more aware of, and you can't fall into this idea that like representation is equal, right? And that like, because it's improving, that it is equal now, and that you can just kind of have your kids turn on the TV and that you can just trust that the representation will be there, because it won't be. Especially if you're looking for lead character, main character energy that is coming from a black or brown person.
Yeah.
Right? So, but that is my first recommendation, is coming up with like representative media, whether that's a book or a show or a movie, where it is diverse visually, but that the content is actually diverse in who are you actually hearing from. Like Maya loves Pinkalicious, right? But she actually resonates the most with Pinkalicious's best friend, who's black. right?
Yeah.
And so
I should know that person's name. I don't.
Yeah, and so
I know Pinklicious and Peterific from the podcast that we listen to every single day.
For years. We've listened to it every night for years. But Maya likes the best friend because she resonates with her. However, she also has things like that Pinklicious does that she resonates with as well, right? So it's good to have both. What other things would you recommend to somebody who has a toddler at home to teach them about race?
Oh, it's got to be the toys.
There it is. Yeah.
It's got to be the toys. And it makes me happy to see every now and again, like a little white baby with the black doll. Like, this is my doll. And I'm like, yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Because again, that was another opportunity that has been taken advantage of, but wasn't like that before.
Yeah.
And so I love seeing kids, like, have, you can get your kid, if you have a blonde hair, blue eyed, or, red haired baby, get them a red haired baby that looks exactly like them.
They should have that.
But they got to have some friends too in their circle, right? So why not have, a black friend, why not, they got to play with somebody. So and even dolls that have, maybe dolls that have ailments, right? So disabilities that are in wheelchairs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, get them dolls that look different and act different. It doesn't have to be Barbie and Ken, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's cool because, for a long time it was like you could get a black Barbie, but she just had straight normal Barbie hair.
Yes.
Right? And now you can get Barbies with afros, you can get Barbies with braids, you can get Barbies with all the things. So, again, that's a perfect example of how the representation might look like it's there, right?
It's improved.
Yeah, and again, okay, that needs to be the premise of this whole episode, is that, like, we don't want to knock on the fact that things have improved. Like, we are not crazy and, like, think that things are just stagnant and are not getting better. But it's eye-opening for me as a white individual, because I would have thought, prior to having my own children, I would have been like, oh, well, great, there's a black Barbie, right? But now that I have my own children and I know how important it would be for Maya to, like, because Maya's hair journey for her has been really interesting.
Yeah.
She has very tight curls. She has an afro. Her sisters do not. And so she has been like, well, why can't I have my hair in a long braid down my back? And I'm like, your hair just doesn't function that way, baby.
Your hair goes up.
And that's okay.
It stays up.
And we've had those conversations, but I can imagine that if Maya didn't have the option to have a Barbie that had an afro, but instead was only able to have a Barbie that had the long hair with the braid down her back, that might perpetuate that her hair is not it, you know? And so, again, like, I only say those things because I know that as a white person, I would have been like, oh, great, black skin Barbie.
Done.
Winning. That's a win.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily equal representation. Yeah. And so I think it's important that is put out there, right? Now, when we started buying our girls' baby dolls, they had white babies, they had black babies, they had brown babies. They had all the babies, all of them, because what they see here translates to what they see and perceive out there as normal, right? And so that was important for us.
Yeah. And it does help that they are around all kinds of people, like our kids.
Yeah.
They're around black people, they're around white people, they're around black babies and white babies, and they've got babies everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And they have the unique opportunity, especially in Utah, to be the diversity and help other kids learn and grow. Now, that can be a blessing sometimes. It has had its own shares of drawbacks. Right?
Oh, yeah.
There's been plenty of times where kids are like, well, hold on, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, why do you look like that, act like that? And quite frankly, like, Maya took her braids out, and we'll probably get into that in the older classes, but there were some things said that didn't go well for Maya, and it was simply just because she pulled her braids out of her hair.
Yeah.
And
that's something that we'll talk about in next week's episode, because it more aligns with the age group.
But that happened this week.
It happened this week.
Between last episode and this episode.
Yeah. And so it's, and we can talk about all of her feelings around that. But again, maybe let's talk about, so one of my favorite things to give as a gift for my kids' friends is coloring supplies. And I always include
the skin tone block from Crayola.
Yes,
because that's fire. Let's talk. I mean,
Yes.
Thank you, Crayola.
Yes. I love, because my girls loved color. Okay. They all loved color. Riker also loves to draw. And I was so happy when they came out with the box of crayons that were like
tones,
the colors of the world.
Yeah.
It's all skin tone colors. Because when you were a kid, I mean, you would just use a black one, right?
Pretty much. Or brown if it was there. Yeah, I had two choices. I would always go for the brown. But if it wasn't there, it was like, all right, we going black then, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not, you can't even leave it either because the paper is likely white, right? Yeah. And so it's like, so, you know, being able as a kid, and I've watched my girls do this, where they'll bring me multiple browns and they'll be like, which one is me? Yeah. Because, and they get that. They get to say, which one of these 4 browns looks more like me? And they'll hold them up to their skin. But I think all kids should have that.
I think every single
kids should have it, so that when they're coloring or they're coloring a picture in a book that has a bunch of people in it, that they can make all the people look different.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now that when I was coloring a book as a kid, this is a weird realization for me that I'm just barely having. Mm-hmm. But when I was in a coloring book as a kid, I didn't color their skin anything but peach, first of all. But I changed their hair colors sometimes. Like some of them would be yellow, some of them would be brown. Okay. But it never occurred to me as a child to create a picture where a bunch of people were at the park and some of them weren't white.
I didn't draw that much, and so I'm trying to draw a similarity there.
I loved coloring as a kid. And as I'm thinking about it, and like you guys I would love it if you would chime in here and tell me if you had a similar experience to me or a different experience to me. But that is a realization that I am just now having.
All the white people were just peach?
Yeah. But and they were all white. I never thought to myself, I'm going to add a black person into this photo.
Or brown, you know.
Yeah, I never colored anybody else's skin brown. Ever. And it's not for any other reason than...
It's not what you saw a lot.
That's not what I saw.
Yeah.
Right? That is an interesting realization to have live here on the podcast. But that being said, I love giving those crayons to our kids' friends. When they say like, oh, they like art stuff, I'm like, I got you.
I'm just going to jump on Amazon right quick.
Yes. And I'll buy you a bunch.
There's 2 different levels of it too. There's like the skin tone light with like 20 colors. And then there's skin tone maximum with like 60 or something like that. It's crazy. It's such a good option, right? And so, it's even as much as that. Like if you're buying crayons for your kids, make sure that they have good skin tone options. Yeah. And then the next phase of this conversation is, regardless of how little they are, you're talking about it. Yeah. Have the conversation. Like we've had conversations like this before, but like it's very awkward, and I'll do it. But it's super awkward for me to have the conversation for you. Right?
Yes.
And especially in Utah, like I know this week there was at least 2 kids where they were like, and they were young. Well, let's hurry.
I know what you're going to say, so let's hurry and role play this situation in our seats. Okay. I'm a kid and you are just standing there and I'm like this. What is the first thing that you say to me?
The kid is like, that's the first black person this kid's ever seen.
That is literally exactly what he says every time. It's like, this kid has never seen a black man before.
Every single time.
Because they will stop in the middle of an Old Navy and just stare.
What in the and they really do. Like, it's no malice or anything like that. Shout out to the clips.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, they ain't mad. They're just like,
what is happening?
How come nobody talked to me about this? Like, literally, and
what is happening?
Like, I was at Cluck's Chicken. We was getting some chicken. This Korean joint. I think it's Korean. I don't know what
it's not.
It's definitely not white.
No way.
100% Asians that run that place. They
but
delicious.
The food is American.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. And I was getting my food, and this baby was like,
just staring.
Mom was just holding the baby, and the baby was looking over mom's shoulder, like, and you could tell mom was like, what's up? And he was just like, you seeing what I'm seeing? Like, and so like, it's always awkward when I'm having a conversation, because I'll have it. Like, kids will be like, hey man, why are you black?
Yeah.
Like, straight up.
They'll say, why is your skin so dark?
Yeah.
Why is your skin black? Like, they'll say it all the time. Somebody commented on like a post that we did about this today, and she was like, I remember, she's like, it's been years and years and years, and yeah, I remember the first time that my kid did this. It was the last.
Yeah.
And but again, like, if you don't, sometimes you don't think to have like the prevention conversation.
There's no prevention. Like, here's the thing. I don't want y'all to think like it's we're avoiding an awkward situation. We're having a negative conversation. Like, I always have I always put a positive spin on it every single time, mainly because like, I don't want them to now forever think the first time they tried to figure out what a black person was, it was a bad time.
Sure.
Right. And so I always try to have a positive spin on it. Like, hey, come here, little fella. Let's look at my skin. You can touch it. I'm going to touch your skin. You see? And obviously we're going to do this in a positive way, right? We're trying to be creepy. But like, look at this. You can see all these pores, and there's a little bit of hair on there. What's this look like? He's like, it looks like my skin. You know, I'm like, yeah, it's actually very similar. It's almost the exact same. The only thing that's different, what's the only thing different? He's like, yours is darker than mine. I'm like, yeah, that's it. And you got some freckles. I ain't got no freckles. Freckles are cool, you know, and I'll try to make it as positive as possible. But it's about how we're the same. The only thing that's different is that I got darker pigment. Like, it's just colored different.
Yes. And I think that, I mean, you have to be careful though, because Bedford's the dopest, right? Like, not all people are going to do that, right?
Well,
so,
quite frankly, like, there are times where I'm like, all right, here we go, turn it up,
right?
Because it does get annoying,
exhausting.
And it is a little bit tiring.
Well, because you're essentially explaining your existence, like, you're having to justify your existence to a child whose parents never talked to them about why it was okay for someone to look different than them, right? And that sucks. And so, yes, we're not out here trying to scare you and be like, hey, this is going to be a crappy experience. But listen, really, we can only speak for ourselves. We will make sure it's not a crappy experience, but the person you run into might not. And so,
it doesn't, like, it's not on them to make it a good experience for you, quite frankly. Like, how would you feel if someone was just like, man, why are you white?
Yeah, or like, why are you overweight, right? Like,
or, whatever it is.
Whatever it is. It's not appropriate for children to, you know, ask. Okay, not appropriate is maybe not. It's not.
It's off-putting.
It's not somebody else's responsibility to control their reaction to your child's questions that should have been answered by you. And a lot of parents, again, because of this thought process of like, oh, kids are just good. Like, they're just inherently good. They do not think that it is necessary to have this conversation with their kids. And so, the easiest ways, and maybe some good examples of how to have these conversations with your kids, are putting babies next to each other. Oh, let's rewind. Some people will say, I don't want to point it out because then my kids will maybe notice something that they would never have noticed otherwise.
They noticed.
They noticed, y'all.
Like,
okay? They noticed.
No, there's a lot of things that get past kids, all right? But they notice.
Like, here's a good example too, because we've all seen those videos of like the white little kid and the black little kid that are running to each other and say that they're twins, right? And, you know, and that's totally fine. Or for example, my nephew was like, I am going to shave my head and I'm going to look like Papa.
Grandpa.
Okay. Yeah. The only thing y'all would have in common is that you have bald heads.
Yeah.
Okay. But kids don't care. They don't care. Like, he was going to be twins with Papa because he had a bald head. He doesn't care that he's, 4 feet shorter and like 80
years younger.
80. But like
60
none of those things matter to him. He doesn't care. It's just, he took this one aspect.
But here's the thing, though. Like, the cool thing with especially like, the black,
the kids run into each other.
Yeah, it's always it's the one black kid and one white kid. They only get that though because they were used to each other.
Yes.
If they lived in a world where they weren't used to each other, they wouldn't do that.
No. And if you and guess what? If you were to ask them like, oh, what makes you twins? They'd probably say, we're both boys.
That's it.
Okay. They're not. So yes, in some situations, you are right. Okay. They're not noticing certain things, but not in a good way.
And here's the thing. It's only not noticeable if it's normal, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right. So like, if you do something weird at your house all the time, like, we always make fun of black communities, right? Because our fire alarms or smoke alarms are always beeping, right? They're always chirping. Sure. Like, if something odd is always happening and you get used to it, all of a sudden, right now, all of a sudden you get into a different situation, that chirp isn't there, or somebody else who didn't live with the, chirping fire alarm, pops up and they're like, that is always chirping. Like, you notice that because you weren't used to that environment, right? So
correct.
Those two boys, they are twins. They are, and they know it because they've known each other for a super long time.
Yes.
You know, we've got best friends that were born in Maya, and then our friend's best friend, they have a kid that's like literally 4 days older than our kid.
4 days older than her. White, red hair.
They are best homies. They will never be anything less than best homies. And you know, some people would have them want to get married. All right. I want my daughter to choose whatever, but you know,
yeah.
Q would have her way, you know, but, like, they're best friends. They'll never notice a difference. And quite frankly, I love the fact that their kids are very, like, I'm Uncle Bedford.
Yes.
Right. So anytime they're with other black people, they're cool.
Right.
Because they got an Uncle Bedford around. Right.
Right. So I think, like, what that leads to is that when your kids are playing with Barbies, it's okay to say, what color is their hair? Oh, what color is this one's hair? You know what? Let's just talk about the Maya thing for a second, okay?
What Maya thing? Oh.
When Maya was younger, okay, so she was in school, so it's a little bit out of this age gap, but I want you to understand, she was in kindergarten, right? So I want you to understand this conversation so that when your kids go into kindergarten, you're prepared. My kids regularly, other children describe their hair as crazy.
Yeah, crazy,
messy,
yeah.
silly, right? Riker's least favorite was poofy for a very long time. And so in these conversations with your children, it can be a book that you're reading. It can be their toys where you put a white Barbie and a black Barbie next to each other and you say, what color is their skin?
What's the same? What's different?
Yes. What color is this one's skin? Oh my gosh, they're both so beautiful. What color, like, let's talk about this one's hair. And if that Barbie has curly hair, we're now teaching positively the adjectives to use for that Barbie's hair. That Barbie's hair is curly. That Barbie's hair is short. That Barbie's hair is like beautiful. That Barbie's hair is soft, right? Like, you are teaching them adjectives to describe hair. Then you have them touch a different Barbie's hair. Okay, well, what color is this Barbie's hair, right? Or you read Hair Love. Yeah. And if you don't own Hair Love, get Hair Love. But you read it and you say, okay, what does your hair feel like? Oh, it's soft. And what is it? How long is it? What color is it? You know? And then you say, let's look at the book. What color is her hair? And if you say, what does her hair look like? And they say messy, you say, oh, maybe let's say curly. Her hair is curly. Yeah. Right? And you're teaching your children these adjectives so that other children aren't having to police your children's adjectives. Now, again, the children don't have any poor intentions. They just don't know better. Yeah. So the person that's supposed to teach them better is you, not another kindergartner.
And then we have to come back and be like, okay, all right. So 4 kids at your school talked about your hair and they said this, and that. What is true? Correct. And we have to have those conversations. That, like, this happened last week even.
Yes.
Like, we have it often.
Or touching, right? She's like, everybody just wants to touch my hair now.
Yeah, now that it's out of the braids and in her full curly glory.
Yes.
Everybody wants to touch it. But, like, you know, have the conversations with your kids now so that we don't have to try to teach our 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old over and over and over and over and over again. Now, luckily, I do believe that she's going to grow up with more confidence ever.
Yes.
Because it's been tested. But unfortunately,
it could go the other way,
consistently
right?
tested, and it could go the other way. Like, our goal is to make sure it doesn't. But
now, I think it's our job as parents. It's everyone's job to teach your children emotional regulation and to, handle their own feelings when people say things to them that are completely out of their control. However, because there's mean kids out there. There's kids out there that are trying to hurt your feelings. And guess what? Those mean kids often grow up to be the same mean people that are in my comment section. Yeah. But the reality is that a lot of the times at this age that we're talking about, kids aren't trying to be mean. They just need to be taught. Yeah. They just need the information. Yeah. And I mean, and so this age, it's all representation based. Yeah. It's all shows that have characters that they can resonate with that don't look like them. It's toys. it's books, it's coloring, and when they're coloring, you know what? Now that I've had this realization, when your kids are coloring, if every single person in every single picture in all of their coloring book is white, maybe ask.
Well, and maybe it's representative of what life looks like. So who are you hanging out with? Like, do you have representation in your life?
Correct.
Do you have any friends that aren't white? Like,
correct. That was actually
could
going
be beneficial.
to be, that's perfect though, because that's where I wanted to end is, I'm not telling you to go get a token black friend. That's not what we're saying. In no way am I saying like, well, run out and find a black friend.
But live your life in a way that it wouldn't, like, you're not blocking that from ever happening, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Diversify your circles. Okay. Like, be the type of person that is like on the outside. It shows that you are a welcoming, open-minded, kind person, right? Encourage your children to make friends with people at school that don't look like them.
Yeah.
Like, ask your children what their friends at school look like. Yeah. When they come home and they're like, well, I played with so-and-so. Oh, what does so-and-so look like? Oh, okay. Like, and you have conversations with your children. If you are at, it's those types of things, because that's 100% it. You, like, the kids are coloring what feels normal to them. Yeah. And if they're never surrounded by anything that isn't white, it would never make sense to them to draw a picture of something that isn't white.
Yeah. And so those are the easiest things to do. So, and, I'm not necessarily, we do want to invite you to go outside of your comfort zone. Maybe I invite somebody over. Make sure you do it in a natural way. We can tell when we're your experience.
When we're the after George Floyd died,
there's been a few times where it was like, they need black people in their lives, and I'm okay with it to a degree in some cases. And then there's been other cases where I'm like, I still don't want to mess with you.
After George Floyd died, we started getting all kinds of, and here's the thing, I just want to put this out there, that it felt complicated because, white people were being told, like, diversify your friend circles. And when you're hearing that, you're like, okay, I will contact a black person, right? Like, because what does that mean? How do I diversify my friend circles without being seen as the white person with a token black friend, or the person that decided to have a black friend just so that I could say I have a black friend? Like,
that I did my homework.
Yes, like that is a really hard concept. But what I will say is that we started getting all kinds of invites to everything. Now, there were some that it was like, they want to hang out with me. Like, they just want to hang out with us and our family. And then there were some where it was kind of like,
I don't want to do that.
This feels forced. This feels like you don't really want to hang out with us, but you also want to say that you, like, diversified your circles, right? And so that's not, again, the
there's
suggestion.
Easier ways to do it too, right? Like, we know for a fact that there are, Polynesian cultural appreciation days at the mall that you can go and hang out with a bunch of Polys, eat some wonderful food. And there's definitely, Latino appreciation, or Latin America. There's groups and communities that happen, and they get together all the time, and they're not going to be mad if you show up.
If you look up cultural events in your area, they're going to pop up, especially over the summer. There are so many cultural events that you can attend where you can take your children, and they have cultural music. They have cultural food.
Look, if there's any reason to go.
Yes. Okay. Well,
get the food, and it's going to be the rawest and purest form of it too, because their peers are amongst them. You know what I'm saying? You're not getting that watered down stuff.
No. Yeah. It is like, but then your children are gaining that exposure. I actually had somebody reach out to me one time and say that every month they tried to cook at least one dish from a different country.
That would be hard.
It's so hard. And she was like, I don't know that I'm really introducing my kids to it, because it probably doesn't taste the same. And she's like, but I'm really trying, and I think it's a good option to be able to say this is something that they eat in a different culture, right? But like, it's little things like introducing your kids to chopsticks and like things that are like, this is different than what I know. Yeah. Right. And so there are a million ways to do it. And to be very honest with you, at this age, this is the age that people say kids don't need it the most, but this is also the age that is the easiest to do it. And if you start them off on the right foot, then you don't need it again down the road. Like, obviously, as they experience other things, which again, as we get further into this, like our last episode, we're going to be talking about the the last 2. We're going to be talking about the use of the N-word and how to talk to your kids about the N-word, how to talk to your kids about blackface. Like, those topics are heavy, right? And they can feel really heavy. However, if you have taught your children about Black people and brown people and different cultures and different, like,
it's way easier.
It is so much easier to explain to your children why we don't use the N-word. It's so much easier to explain to them why it would be offensive, because now they have probably likely made connections with people that are Black or brown. And so when you explain to them how it might hurt those people for blackface to be seen, now there's an emotional connection. Like, I wouldn't want to hurt that person
that they like.
Yes, like I would never want to hurt that person. And this is the age that it starts. It really is. And so, but it is also the easiest. Mix up the toys, mix up the shows, mix up the movies, mix up the color palettes, mix up the food. Like, get them out, give them the exposure. It all kind of starts here.
Yeah. And if you do it right now, it's so easy in the future.
So much easier.
And quite frankly, you get surrounded by cool people, get new experiences. Like, it's all, there's no negatives.
No. And the last thing that I want to end on is, the most important thing that you can do, and I'll probably say this every episode while we're discussing about this, but the most important thing that you can do as a white person when you're talking to your children about race and trying to educate them is feel educated yourself. And so if there's something that you're like, is this okay? Like, if you don't understand it or you don't know it, look it up.
Do the research.
Do the research. Make sure that you're connecting with the information.
Ask a Black person, because quite frankly, we all have different opinions. Like, maybe ask several. Do some research. Read up on it. Like,
it's funny. People will ask Bedford, like, so what is what are Black people's opinion about this? And he's like, I can tell you my opinion. I'll tell you
my opinion. I ain't going to speak for the whole race.
Like cultural appropriation, like braids, right? Like Bedford's like, I don't care if a white person gets braids, but there are some Black people that are very passionate about cultural appropriation in terms of braids, right? And so, like, get multiple opinions. Also, do not just walk up to a random Black person and say, can I ask you a question? Like, you need to have relationships with people. You need to have, like, trusted resources. And if you do not have those, please reach out to us.
Yeah,
like,
we'll be your trusted research.
Yes, like we will, you can ask questions and we can create a safe space where those questions can be answered for you.
But don't just flag the next Black person.
We're not doing that, right?
Hey, hold up.
Make sure that you feel educated as you're going into these conversations with your children. You can't educate someone if you're not educated yourself.
Yeah,
so
true that be.
Do the research, okay?
All right.
Thanks for being here. Next week, the age group is 5 to 9. So we'll be talking about basically elementary aged kids and kind of what that looks like once they're in school and some of the things that our kids experience and, the conversations that we should be having with our children to make it a positive experience for everyone.
All right. Love it.
Thanks for being here.
All right. And of course, like and subscribe, share this. It does help a heap. But you already know that. We just got to remind you.
Every time.
Yep. Anyway, stay blessed.